I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, and just a reminder, if you have cell phones, please turn them on silent. With that, may we have roll call?
Mayor Bank.
Here.
Councilor Gorell. Here. Councilor Lundstrom.
Here.
Councilor Scalise.
Here.
Councilor Sherman. Yeah, here. Councilor Spradlin.
Here.
Councilor Stroud.
Here. Okay, number 3, we've all had a chance to look over the minutes for the regular meeting of May 10th. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, I'd look for a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
He did.
I'd so move. Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Kevin. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilor Lundstrom.
Yep.
Councilor Sherman. Yes. Councilor Stroud.
Yes.
Councilor Gorell. Yes. Councilor Scalise.
Yes.
Councilor Spradlin.
Yes.
Mayor Bank.
Yes. Dan, is your mic, it is on?
We finally
Okay.
got it.
I think so.
Okay. Okay. All right, we'll move on to visitors and delegations. At this portion of our meeting, or the meeting, is for citizen comments. Citizens are invited to speak to council on any item that does not have a public hearing scheduled. There's a 5-minute time limit per person unless otherwise noted by the mayor. Please note that no formal action will be taken on an item that is not on the posted agenda due to the open meeting law provision. However, they may be placed on a future posted agenda if action is required. To better assist you with questions, please submit them in writing to the city clerk and someone from staff will respond. One thing I'll say tonight, too, is we do have a hearing on small cell regulation. So if anyone has a comment on small cell regulation, I would hold that comment until the hearing where council can consider it. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to citizen comment. Is there anyone that would like to comment tonight?
Not all at once.
So for first come, first serve, just please give us your
I thought you were
name.
going to do the city comment after the regular business, but I guess not.
Oh, no, we do it at the beginning.
Ah, okay. Well, my name is Tim Oakley. I live at 416 Applewood Street, and I'm here to express my concern regarding the possible amendment of the city code to allow chickens within the city of Brush. You know, we have a lot of nice residential areas in our city, and there are a lot of people that take pride in their homes and property. Unfortunately, there are some properties, as we all know, that aren't quite up to par, up to standard, and so that can reduce the attractiveness of our neighborhoods. And there are, you know, you're going to have that. And there are also pet owners that, you know, have pets that that don't really, in my opinion, take good care of their pets. They will, the poor pets never see the outskirts of their backyard or home. They're never on a leash to go out and socialize. So, you know, there's a lot of, and there are good pet owners too that will allow, you know, and they take their pets on walks and so forth. So this the chicken code that you're considering changing, you know, it might be, and I'm sure that there will be a lot of people that are in favor of this that will do the right thing with their chickens and take care of their chickens, and they will raise them and keep the coops clean and so forth. But just like with the property owners that don't take care of their properties and the pet owners that really don't take care of their pets properly, don't walk them, socialize them. I'm not saying you need to walk your chicken if you had a chicken. But I know that there would be a lot of those people that would, you know, if this passes, that they would do a good job in maintaining their chicken coops. But there are a lot of others that, you know, due to the novelty of the whole thing, might come in and say, I want chickens, I'm gonna have chickens, and we're gonna raise them, and we're gonna have fun with them, but they don't realize how much work actually goes into it. That, you know, the feeding, I'm sure you all have heard all of the pros and cons of having chickens. But you know, and the cost, you know, there are some costs that are associated with it that people don't realize, that I think that they might incur that they didn't expect, and the work. I mean, if you leave town, what are you going to do with your chickens? Who's going to take care of them? If it's winter time, who's going to, you know, you got to have heated coops, I would think. I'm not a chicken person, so I don't know for sure, but I would assume that you would have to keep them warm. I'm just afraid that my biggest concern is that if this amendment to the code passes, it might create like a fuse that could ignite disagreements between neighbors that they didn't have before, because they weren't taking care of their chickens properly, not cleaning the coops, the odor, the insects, you know, all those things that go along with it. And then also the city staff would have to deal with some of this stuff, so that puts an extra stress on the city staff, of course. And then the code enforcement officer, you know, I'm sure that they have a full plate, and if passed, you know, that's gonna they're going to have chicken issues to deal with. And my question is to you, if this passes, then for chickens, what if I want to have ducks? Can I come and have ducks? Or geese? Can I have geese? Or peacocks? Turkeys? You know, where I mean, how do you draw that line? So, you know, we've done just fine without chickens up to this point in our city, and, you know, I don't think that it's something that we really need, and I ask you to protect the integrity of our neighborhoods and our neighbors, and do what's right, and not vote to change the code, to amend the code to allow chickens.
All right, thank you. One thing I failed to mention, as you come up, we've got a timer here with the 5 minutes to help the speaker. The light doesn't come on until you're at 3 minutes. When it gets to 4 minutes, it will turn yellow. That means you have 1 minute left, and then when it turns red, your 5 minutes are up, okay? I should have pointed that out, and I didn't. So with that, I'll ask if there's anyone else that would like to comment.
I'm Angela Warner. I live at 95 Jennifer Circle. I have my own stuff I want to talk about, and then I have some others, so I'll go fast. So I wrote this letter, so I'll just read it to you. My husband and I moved to Brush in 2001. We've lived here for almost 20 years. The entire time I've wished I could have chickens. I grew up in the country, and we had 50 to 100 chickens at a time, so I know how much work it is. I know what it takes to take care of chickens, but I would love to have some chickens in the backyard for fresh eggs. I called City Hall years and years ago, and they said, no, you can't. And so I was like, okay. But our backyard backs up to an undeveloped field. Like, it makes no sense to me that I can't have like 6 chickens in my backyard. So back then I decided not to fight it. And lately on Facebook, I'm seeing there's other people who agree with me. They would like to have some backyard chickens too. And I highly doubt that most of us are completely uneducated about what chickens are, because we do live in a rural area. I have seen Mayor Bain and Lisa Lebsock on Facebook saying that there would need to be a facility built to house confiscated or stray chickens, and that it would increase the code officer's job. I would like to suggest considering the possibility of finding someone who lives in the country that has chickens and would gladly take confiscated chickens to add to their flock. I mean, most people who have chickens in the country would probably take on more without an issue. I feel that if we had a yearly licensing fee, a restriction on the number of chickens, an anti-rooster rule, and possibly even getting consent from neighbors like Portland, Oregon does. Portland lets chickens, Denver lets chickens, Fort Morgan lets chickens, Akron. I mean, so many places allow chickens and don't seem to have major issues. I just don't see that if we had, you know, some fees, that it would bring that much of an extra issue to the city, because people who want chickens would have to be putting quite a bit of money into it for fees and housing and whatever else. Let's see. Plus, you should consider that the number of people that would actually have backyard chickens is probably pretty low. Like, probably, I don't even know how many, but it's probably not as many as people are thinking, that it's gonna just explode. I don't really see that happening. I don't think that happened in Fort Morgan or Akron or, yeah. I just hope that you'll strongly consider letting us have some chickens. You know, and obviously there would have to be rules, but I think that's fine. There would have to be rules and fees, and I think that's perfectly fine. So then I have a letter that was sent to me. I was talking to people on Facebook, so that's why I have other things. Her name is Carrie Getz. She lives at 604 Custer Street. She says, to the Brush City Council, I am Carrie Getz. There has always been chickens on this property at 604 Custer Street since we bought it 23 years ago. I was told that they were grandfathered in. So I moved them from the corner of the house and built them a new shed. I had the ordinance that we got with the house that said we could have them. So when my last girls died, I ordered 4 red slinks for the extra large eggs. Lisa stopped by and said there was a new ordinance and there was no grandfather clauses and I had to get rid of them. So I gave them to the lady that works there at City Water. I cried for days and days, and now I have an empty shed and chicken run. I would beg for the city to let me have my chickens. Thank you, Carrie Getz. Debbie Strach, who lives at 711 Ray Street, says, I believe we should be able to raise chickens on our property as long as the numbers are limited and they are taken care of. I raised chickens for many years and enjoyed the benefits of eggs and bug control. They are a good addition to our yards. And then this woman already sent her letter in April, so you probably already have copies of it, but her name was, or is, Heidi Kopetsky from 1616 Eaton Street. So I'll just turn all these letters in. I don't know who would take them, or who does take them, the secretary. And I'll just finish, even though my time's not up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I yield the rest of my.
Anyone else? I can introduce this gentleman, former Mayor Larry Coffin, but I don't know your address.
I'm Larry Coughlin. I live at 312 Stanford.
Okay.
I can tell you that I was raised on a farm north of Boulder, and we had chickens, and there's nothing that stinks worse than chicken poop. And if you don't take care of it, it does smell terrible. And I think that's what my biggest concern is, that people are not going to take care of their chickens like they should. I would urge the council members to go on Microsoft Edge and look under Raising Backyard Chickens, and there's a article titled Raising Backyard Chickens 101. I wish all of you would take a look at it. I think you don't understand all that's required to take care of these chickens. Also, I happened to get online this morning, and I found an interesting article. The CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control, warns that you shouldn't be touching chickens right now due to salmonella. That's another reason that I don't think we need chickens in the backyard, is salmonella. Chickens carry salmonella, birds carry salmonella, mice carry salmonella. If you get this started in the town, everybody's going to end up with bloody diarrhea and feel sick for 6 or 7 days. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Be short. I'm Sherry Ann, and I live at 305 Glacier. Partly just backing up some of the things that the others had said. I understand that if you're backed up to a rural area, it's very frustrating. I'm sure if you can't have something when you are in a rural area. Most of the town, though, is not in a rural area. Backed up to me, and on each side is right over the fence. I have no alley, I have no nothing. Is right next to me with the fence that, you know, has little slats that could come through. And what Larry said about the salmonella thing, my son got salmonella when he was 3 months old. He was hospitalized at NCMC on an IV for 5 days, And the only source we could figure out that he had gotten it was from chickens. Actually, what happened was, we figured out with my older son was playing with chickens. We were at a friend's house, they had chickens, it was out in the country, running around in the pen with the chickens and stuff, having a good time. Only thing we can think is that, and the doctor figured out, was that when we brought him home, you lay your baby on a blanket, but they don't always stay on the blanket. And my other son probably ran across the floor a few million times with chicken poop on his feet. And so that was the only way we could come up with, because I nursed him at the time. He had no other food besides that, and so that was what was determined was the reason for that. So that was a major thing. I know also from experience, my son lives outside of the city limits in Fort Collins, so he's rural anyway, but they have neighbors very close to them with a fence backed up to theirs. And periodically, and my son has chickens only because he inherited them with the house. They came with the house. There was a coop and chickens with the house. So, but anyway, they, twice, his chickens have jumped over the fence, and for him it was not a big deal because he's not really that into the chickens anyway. And I mean, not that he wanted the chicken to get killed, but he wasn't mad at the neighbors, and obviously it was his chicken that jumped over. It wasn't their fault. But I think that that could potentially be an issue with the code enforcement or police department or whatever. A chicken jumps over the fence, it's really the chicken owner's fault, but I'm sure that could be an argument at some point, that there's a big deal over that. So I think code enforcement with that, and then also with the dirtiness, because probably the people that are here are gonna take good care of them, because they're obviously people educated and thing in this, but I think a lot are gonna buy a chicken for their little baby chick at Easter, and they're gonna let it grow and not have it, you know, a thing to do with it afterwards, or take care of it. And it's carried in the feces, like Larry was saying, that's where it comes from. So if it collects feces around the pen, that's potentially a salmonella hazard. So.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Public comment?
My name's Janice Roach. I live in Ward 2. I live on 622 Carson. I'm a no for the chickens. Just for the fact is, I walk all over town. I see some yards. They're terrible. I can't even imagine those people having chickens if they can't even take care of their yard. I just think they're dirty. I couldn't imagine sitting on my back patio where, like right there, is someone's yard with chickens that smell. The wind comes up, things blow around, and I just think that chickens belong in the country, and that's my opinion.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Kurt Bostron, 437 Samples Avenue, and I want to thank all of you for your service for what you do for the city of Brush. You have developed a very pristine environment for all of us to enjoy. However, I feel the chickens could challenge our pristine environment. They have unintended consequences. First, we start with noise. I like to sleep in on occasion. If you're around chickens, they make noise. They're natural predators. Dogs, antagonize the dogs, get the dogs barking. You have noise you have to deal with. There's also natural predators all the way around the city that they can draw, such as coyotes. They're very nearby. They can come to town. They're looking for chickens. They like chickens. There's also, with the change of environment of chicken waste and storing of feed, you have the possibility of introducing rodents, mice, and rats that enjoy this environment. And there's also the disposing of chickens that die. What happens to those? They end up in our dumpsters. Is that where we want them? What happens with those? So with that, I want to thank you for the environment you have created, and I hope you continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So salmonella has been around for a very long time. And
Please give your
education,
name and address. I know you, but
I'm Darlene Doan. I live at 1415 Edmund Street in Brush, Colorado for 48 years.
okay, I've asked the same question of everyone.
Okay. So what I would like to say is you've heard much from the opposition, and I kind of expected it. The number of people in Brush who would like to have a chicken coop in their backyard will be a limited number. We will never have a majority. What we're asking for is that the city council research this. Chickens are not predators, perhaps a rooster is. Ban them. As far as having ducks and geese, they are loud, and they do create more of a mess. Go to the park in the city of Port Morgan and you will see that. But if they're in a controlled environment, that can be, a mat can be put underneath the roosting area that can be hosed off every day, poop would not be a problem. And you just would double sack it, put it in your trash can, and I know how to take care of chickens. We've had them on our farm forever. And I think there are quite a few people in Brush that were raised on a farm. And so I think that with more education about salmonella, maybe Larry Coughlin, our former vet, would love to talk about it, and how to prevent the spread. Because it's been around forever. Just because there's a news release that came out doesn't mean it's something new. It is not new. Their CSU Extension Office has flyers that you can look up on how to clean your eggs. 1 tablespoon of bleach in a gallon of water to rinse your eggs after they have been cleaned works great to prevent things like salmonella. I suggest that you take, you really research it and ask other towns, what has been your success rate in having chicken coops? Because it's already been tried and tested in other cities. Just because it's new to Brush and we have a fear of the unknown does not mean that it's a bad thing for Brush. So I would like for the city council to maybe name a committee, form a focus group of people who are proponents of chicken coops and ask them to come in. We could have educational seminars on new chicken coop owners at the library where they have books that share how to take care of chickens. We don't need to be afraid of the unknown when it's already tried and tested in other communities. Akron, it's easy to call City Hall and ask them. I did. It's green.
Oh, yeah,
So-
you're fine, you got 2 minutes.
So I think, just do that. Just take that time and see if it's really going to be a problem. As far as building another facility, is there a shed on the English feedlot that is being used for dogs?
No, we have a building, it's not on English feedlot. You take Colorado Avenue out at about 2 miles, we have a small building that we house dogs.
Correct.
But no dogs
I
and
knew
chickens
that
aren't
was
gonna get.
there, but I was told that there was a building out there on the English feedlot that could be used. You don't need to build a new building.
It's used by our fire department right
Oh,
now, and for storage for the museum.
And I thought the idea of finding someone nearby that has a farm and chicken population already to see, maybe that would work. That would be something that a focus group could check into. So I would suggest that we have at least one city council person on the committee, the people who are in favor and people who are against, so that we can have this discussion in a logical way and get to the facts. Let's not just govern by fear. Let's not just govern by majority vote on something that only a smaller number of people would want. That's what I ask of you guys. Just do some more research, please.
All right,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm Dorothy Crane, and I live at 2002 Emerson Street. And I grew up on a farm here in Brush, and we had chickens from the time, and we had a chicken coop, and we had to feed the chickens from all the way to old hens And sometimes when I gathered eggs, you would be surprised that a snake would get in there and eat the eggs and curl up in the nests. And it was scary. But I like to eat chickens, but I don't want to raise chickens in town because I think they belong in the country. We have a beautiful, nice, clean city, and I want to keep it that way. So I'm in favor of not having chickens. Okay? That's a yes/no thing, isn't it?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
No chickens, please.
Anyone else?
I'm Kathy Nix. I live 618 Turner Street. And I've raised chickens. I raise 2,000 chickens a year. I'm the chicken superintendent for the Morgan County Fair. And I would just be so happy to be able to have a couple chickens in my backyard. As far as salmonella, if that's bad with chickens, I never got it. Nobody I knew got it. You know, I had to scoop my chicken sheds all the time, and it was work, but I just thoroughly enjoyed it. And I moved to Brush about 8 years ago, and somebody was trying to get chickens then, and I just wish we could have some because they're so enjoyable. You know, people make pets out of chickens, and I don't, you know, no roosters, and I can see just chickens, no ducks, no geese, because they are noisier. And there'd be a benefit to a person's backyard. You know, you take care of them properly. And as far as feed, and I do know people out in the country that if the people didn't want their chickens, they'd be happy to take them in their herd. And and the kids in 4-H thoroughly enjoy the chickens. And we usually, you know, have quite a few at the fair. So that'd be another project that the city kids could have. And I know Denver has chickens, Aurora has chickens, Akron, Fort Morgan, and as somebody said, there probably would not be that many people that would go ahead and get them, and probably the people that do get them would take care of them and not just abuse them. And like I said, you know, charge fees for them, and those chickens wouldn't be any worse than the dogs barking in the backyard all the time. So, okay, so I would love to be able to have chickens.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is April Amack. I live at 349 Howell Avenue in Brush. And I first heard about this issue of backyard chickens on the City of Brush's Facebook page. And then I didn't really hear anything else about it for a while until my sister-in-law shared with me that information was being posted to a Brush Concerned Citizens Facebook group that she belongs to. And I was a little surprised by that city councilors would post information to a closed group where the people only limited to that group would receive that information.
Excuse me, could you raise your voice just a little bit? I'm having a
Sure.
hard time hearing.
I'm not sure that a person should have to join a closed group to get public information from city council. Regarding this issue, as a young girl, I also grew up on a farm. My dad was a farmer. We raised cows, we raised chickens. Farming was a means of livelihood and provided for our family. But backyard chickens are neither, because in-town lots were never sized to accommodate livestock. As the town grows to accommodate more and more people, lot sizes are getting smaller and smaller, often with no fences and no alleys, and our neighbors are getting stacked closer and closer together. And that's fine. because we've chosen to live in town with city amenities. So concerns about odors and noises and care of chickens is a legitimate concern. Some people disagree about domestic pets, and do you really want to add another reason for people to not get along? Do you really want to add more policies and processes and procedures and costs and government imposed on our community? I understand that there were photos shared on social media that portrayed a very elegant and picturesque view of chicken coops and raising chickens. However, 62% of students qualify for free and reduced meals according to the Colorado Department of Education. So do you really think everyone will be affording a $1,000 or $2,000 chicken coop? Here's the possibility of what your neighbor's chicken coop could look like. This is a recent photo taken of a chicken coop in Fort Morgan. As you can see, they were doing their very best with what they had and what they could afford, but the fence is a chain link fence and in clear view. How do you think those neighbors feel? How do you think that affects their property values? In the end, how does this help build a better brush? Rather than focus on the individual, can we switch the focus to the community? Because good neighbors keep their neighbors' interest in mind. Like a community garden where land is limited, we have the same issue here. Residential town lots are too small and not intended for this use. Can we find an approved space where a group of like-minded people who want to raise chickens for eggs can grow them in this shared designated community space? So the duties, the costs, the veterinary care, the care of caring for these chickens can be shared by them, and it becomes that destination for school children to visit and learn. Why create the potential for conflict between neighbors where conflict currently doesn't exist? There are other options available. So no, do not change the current city ordinance for backyard chickens. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Rob Zelmer, and I live at 449 Samples Avenue. Been a resident of Brush since 2003. I just want to say to you all there, I hope you do your due diligence before you say yes or no as far as what we have to do to get this thing amended or keep it the way it is. So please, I'm asking every one of you to do your due diligence on our behalf. That's all I'm asking. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to publicly comment?
I have one more point I'd like to make. And it might seem silly, but I don't think it is. So, Bing, when we were having a conversation recently, I'm Darlene Doe, 1450 Memphis Street. I've been here for
Okay, and
48 years.
I'm not sure how much time you had left. Not another 5 minutes. But
What I would just like to say is one of the things that we talked about was apathy is a problem.
Mhm.
That people don't come to city council. And so we citizens don't often come to city council to ask for a change in ordinance. And I would like you to remember that perhaps the reason there is apathy is government is not responsive to the ordinary person. If I was with the Chamber of Commerce and I asked for a beer license for the Oktoberfest, good, no problem. But as a citizen asking for a change to my backyard, I would like for the same consideration.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add to mine and be quick? I didn't even get to a green light, so I think I'm safe. The salmonella thing, she's right, it's been around forever. You have to actually get feces on your hand or whatever, get in your mouth, but kids can. I didn't see the picture, but I'm assuming there was a lot of stuff around underneath there. Even if there's not, and it's running into the next neighbor's yard when the yard gets watered, when you whatever, then feces and/or the germs from the feces are going into the neighbor's yard. And if there's little kids there, then that potentially can do that. So, I mean, if they keep it by their house, that's maybe different, but if it's gonna be around the perimeter, it definitely is something where it could run into other yards and stuff, so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, let's, if you've already been up once, we'll keep it a little shorter here.
This
We
one's
still have a
even
full schedule.
shorter.
Okay.
Anyhow, we were in New York City and at the airport, and we were walking from the airport over to our hotel. And all of a sudden, Gary grabbed me, and what's the, and there was dead chickens laying right next to the sidewalk. And I said, oh, God, how awful that was. Now, wouldn't that be terrible that we would have that here in Brush? You know, and that was New York City. I thought it was awful. Let's keep it clean. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That also means they allow them in New York City. Okay,
Only dead ones.
all right. If there's no other public comment, I'll go ahead and move on to the management part of the meeting. Thank you all for coming in, expressing your opinion to council. If you'd like to stay for the rest of the meeting, that's fine. If you'd like to leave, I'll give an opportunity for a second before we move on to management.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. Mine's working fine.
Allison, you have a copy of it? Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, mine's working fine. All right. Hold my mouth right, I guess.
All right, moving on to number 5. Under management, we have a proclamation number 2021-7 in recognition of National Foster Care Month. Is Sherry Armstrong here? Don't believe she is. We thought we were going to have someone from the foster care unit of Morgan County to talk to us tonight on behalf of this cause. Without her, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion of approval for the proclamation.
I move to approve the proclamation number 2021-7 in recognition of National Foster Care Month.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
A second.
Councilor Lundstrom, second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Scalise,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Guerrero,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Bain.
Yes. And with that, I'll ask Councilor Gurel to read the proclamation aloud.
Proclamation number 2021-7 in recognition of National Foster Care Month. To bring awareness to the need of nurturing foster care for the youth in our community and in communities across our nation. Whereas children are key to the state's future success, prosperity, and quality of life. Whereas children have a right to thrive, learn, and grow. Whereas foster parents provide the love, safety, and stability that young children need in order to overcome past traumatic experiences in order to reach their full potential. Whereas Colorado foster parents are caring for and nurturing more than 2,000 children and youth in foster care today. Whereas we must come together as a community to recognize the important role foster parents play in caring for children who have experienced abuse, neglect, supporting family reunification, and building strong communities. Whereas there is always a need for more foster parents in order to ensure children, especially older youth, children with complex needs, and siblings, have a safe, stable home in their community. Whereas there are numerous individuals, nonprofit organizations, and public servants who are dedicated to raising awareness about the needs of children and youth in foster care, as well as the invaluable contribution of foster parents. And whereas we all play a role in preventing child abuse and neglect. Therefore, be it resolved that the Brush City Council formally declares May 2021 as Foster Care Month in the city of Brush, Colorado, and publicly proclaims the importance of caring and nurturing foster care for children in our community and in communities nationwide. Given under my hand, not my hand, the mayor's hand, and the seal of the city of Brush this 24th day of May 2021.
All right, thank you, Allison. Yeah, as we thought we would have somebody speaking on this, I just want to say, this is an issue, my parents were foster parents. I'm adopted, but my parents fostered children throughout the years and stuff. And it's something, if you haven't checked into it, Morgan County is in desperate need of foster care parenting. So if it's something you're interested, I'd encourage you to reach out to Morgan County Foster Care Unit. So with that, I'll move on to 5B. This is a public hearing concerning ordinance number 885-21, an ordinance amending the City of Brush Municipal Code regarding telecommunications to include Section 16-7-30 standards for small cell wireless facilities. I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing, and we'll hear a staff report from our City Attorney, Dan Crow.
Thank you, Mayor. For members of the public, this is just amending our zoning code to say when and where these telecommunication companies can put the new 5G small cell wireless. It's basically the size of a backpack. And the way that the city can control where these go is through the zoning code. So that's why we're having a public hearing.
Okay.
That's really about it.
All right, is there any, I'll go ahead and open it up to public testimony. Is there anyone that would like to comment on this hearing? And I can say the one thing I've heard, I don't know if any of you have had questions about this. The questions I'm getting is why we're allowing the 5G in the first place. And I'd let Dan answer that better, but I think we're allowed to determine where they are and how they look and what kind of quality. But the FCC and the state preempts the city from stopping any sort of deployment. Is that?
Yeah, that's actually a very good summary. The federal government basically wants this technology in there. They've preempted control over it except for what zone it can go in and what it can look like. Those are two things we can regulate. So that's what this ordinance does. Pretty much that's all that we can control.
Okay. Okay, with that, are there any council questions of Dan on this issue? Okay, with that, I would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'd move we close the public hearing.
Okay, Councilor Scalisi has a motion to close public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilor Gurel, second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote on closing the public hearing.
Counselor Sherman?
Yes.
Counselor Stroud?
Yes.
Counselor Burrell?
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin?
Yes.
Counselor Scalisi?
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom?
Yes.
Mayor Bank?
Yes. Okay, moving on to 5C, this deals with the second reading of the ordinance now that we've concluded the hearing. Ordinance number 885-21, a second reading, an ordinance amending this, well, I'll ask for a motion on this item and let the motion maker read that, title it.
I move we
All right.
approve,
Oh.
oops, sorry.
I thought you were all looking at me, all right.
I move we approve ordinance number 885-721, 885-21, second reading. An ordinance amending the City of Brush Municipal Code regarding telecommunications to include section 16-7-30 standards for small cell wireless facilities.
Okay, we have a motion to approve that ordinance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilor Spradlin, second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Scalisi?
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom?
Yes.
Counselor Sherman?
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin?
Yes.
Counselor Stroud?
Yes.
Counselor Gurrell?
Yes.
Mayor Bank?
Yes. Okay, moving on to 5D. This is also another ordinance on first reading, number 887-21. I would look for a counselor to introduce by title.
I would like to introduce ordinance number 887-21, amending section 8-1-30 of the Brush Municipal Code regarding parking campers or trailers on public property within the city of Brush.
Okay, the ordinance has been properly introduced. I would look for a motion to approve and publish.
I move that we approve ordinance number 887-21 on first reading, amending section 8-1-30 of the Brush Municipal Code regarding parking campers or trailers on public property within the city of Brush, and to publish as well.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Counselor Sherman, second. Any further discussion on that?
From staff, I've got just one thing I just wanted to point out, is that this was an ordinance that previously, or I guess as it is now, it's a 3-day period that you're allowed to have the campers and trailers on streets. We did talk about going to 5 days based upon a council request, and then we end up with the 7-day in a 10-day period. So those are significant changes. But the one that's going to come up in a little bit different conversation or in a work session is the model traffic code. That's the part where I've got a little bit of concern about the entire summer, allowing them to be nonstop or full-time. I'll talk about it more there, but the history as we started here, went to here, and went to here, and that all summer long, that part of the code is the one I've got some concerns with, that we go so extreme with it that you start getting complaints from the other side of the house where, just like we talked about with chickens, it's okay with campers a few days, a few weeks, but the entire summer, 6 solid months, it will, I believe, create some issues down the road from neighbors complaining about this camper's been out there the entire summer. So I'm just bringing that up as a concern from staff that want to bring to your attention.
Okay, so though, and that will be covered, that would be an ordinance on the model traffic code that'll be covered in the work session, the other piece of that? Yeah, okay.
And Mayor, may I address the council briefly?
Yes.
Chief Boss and I drafted this, kind of just to get a feel of what council wanted. We're gonna adopt the model traffic code, as Monty said, and there's some issues with, if we adopt this ordinance and amend our current code and then adopt the model traffic code, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but there's a good probability that, when it gets codified, there's gonna be some confusion about, well, you just put this one in there and then you're re-adopting it. So this might be a good time for council to tell us the parameters that you want in this and table this issue until we adopt the model traffic code to avoid those publishing issues. And I apologize for that.
So I thought we had talked about just leaving it at 3 days, and then.
Yeah, there might be some, I was a little confused myself.
when I read it.
I thought the spirit of this in the beginning was to give people a little more time to unload and load their trailers. I was comfortable with moving from 3 to 5 days to provide that time. I'm with Monty in thinking the other piece of that is in the other part that says we're not gonna, you can park on the street all summer long. I didn't think that was the spirit of how it was brought up. It was to give more time, not to give carte blanche to parking your trailer for
6 months?
Was it May 1st to October? I feel a little uncomfortable with that too. I think if, my own feeling, I'm not sure how everyone else feels, is you make a change that helps, a smaller change causes a smaller effect, a bigger change causes a bigger effect. I'm uncomfortable with saying from May 1st to October 5th, it can be parked out on the street. I think the way it'll work out is, I'm a fifth wheel owner myself. I think the people that have their fifth wheels by their homes aren't necessarily going to park them out in the street just because they can and leave them. I don't see that necessarily being something people will do. And I have mine in storage. I really don't think that people are going to abandon the storage and save that money and park them on the street, but I'm not sure, because storage is at a premium around here and it can be hard to find storage. But I think if you do open it up all summer, one of the things I worry about, what if you have somebody that has a trailer and they don't like the neighbor across the street? And they say, you know what, I'm gonna pull my trailer around on this public street, park it right in front of his house, and there isn't a darn thing he can do about it all summer. That's what that rule might
Well, I
allow.
think we talked about this, and Chief Boss said there was other things in there that would address that.
Would it address that particular point?
I think we have, sorry,
Oh, sorry.
I think we do have sufficient ordinances to address the other concerns. But back to what Dan Krob was saying, this is embedded in the model traffic code. So I know we talked at the work session about doing both at the same time, and we couldn't remember why, but that's actually why, because it's already embedded in there.
Oh.
So if we pass it in one shot, that's way easier strategically and for codes. But that also gives us time to kind of hash through what you actually want. The issues of neighbors, living in the campers, those things are addressed in other places in our code.
Yeah, I remember that.
So really, I think the issue is just the time frame. I think everything else, we have other ordinance to address.
To that point, I guess I want to be clear, because not everyone in the gallery, of course, can read what we're reading at the moment unless they've got copies. This doesn't say 6 months. This ordinance that we're looking to approve, it says 10 days.
Oh, but the other piece of that is. what we-
Right, and
yeah.
I don't want there to be some confusion, because this came in right as we made a motion to approve this ordinance, so I don't want there to be confusion to that. And I do see here that it references the model traffic code in section 1203, but I do remember what Chief Foss was saying, that we said we needed to do both at the same time to make sure that we're clearing up all issues at once.
So I think you might have an old version. This is the new version, and I was overly inclusive with the language because I find it's easier for council to say, yeah, strike that. And
Oh,
then
I do
make
have an
the
old
motion.
version.
So this did have a, it wouldn't be enforced between, May to October.
Okay, so
So-
I do have an old version, hence the reason I made a motion to approve it, because I like it as I'm reading it.
Okay, would you like to amend that motion or withdraw that motion until we clear this up?
Yeah, I would like to withdraw that motion and maybe table this until we can clear it up.
Okay. Okay, so the motion has been withdrawn. Okay, so where does that leave us?
Let's put it on the next work session.
Nick, is that agreeable
Well,
to
can we
everyone?
include it in the ordinance that
I
we're
think
talking
part of it
about,
is
the
we
work
wanted to
session
get this
that
thing in
we're-
Yeah,
place.
for the summer, 'cause it's,
summer's here.
yeah. So would you be interested, it sounds like,
The older version.
Councilmember Gorell's motion would be to approve it with striking the, between October 1st and April 30th, such restrictions shall not be applicable from May 1st through September 30th language.
Yeah, because so we have the language here of property within the city of Brush for a period in excess of 168 hours within any 10 consecutive days. And I know that we did discuss it from a beginning to end point. I know that we did discuss that, but I mean, to staff's point, that can be a great concern, although the chief has said that there are other avenues. I don't know.
I remember we all talked about, we all agreed on this. This is what I'm confused
Well, I
at.
thought we were
And
gonna leave it at 3 days and then just do the summer thing. That's what I was,
yeah,
that's what I
I
understood.
mean,
Many people are gonna do it, but it's gonna grow over time as people see campers parked on streets longer and longer and longer. And I think the public that has them on the streets, and maybe this guy has a camper now that you have 4 people living in the house next door, that their parking spot is gone. I think there's a very good chance that it will come back at some point saying this is too permissive of a policy.
Although it can
And
address it
going
at
from
that
3
point.
days to 7 out of 10, that's pretty permissive in my book. So I'm uncomfortable with the whole summer long.
I think the spirit was more along the lines of not giving you time to clean out your camper. I think the spirit was more along the lines of being able to make it from weekend to weekend and not having
Well,
to take your camper to
yeah.
storage and then bring your camper back and then take your camper to storage. And
But
bring your-
doesn't 7 out of 10 days does exactly that, right? You can have it parked
Yes.
7 out of 10 days, so if you're one of the people, because that, you're right, that, Justin, that was a concern. People that go camping every weekend, why did they have to put their trailer up?
Yeah, you still
If
have
it is
to
moved,
rotate out. I mean, you can't sit there indefinitely all summer.
right.
I mean,
But I mean,
Still
the
outstanding.
7 out of 10 would solve that, I believe.
I think that's the biggest issue, is that you can't leave it there, because that's one of the reasons we got rid of our fifth wheels, because we couldn't leave it for longer than 3 days, so you can't make it to the next weekend. So the 7 to 10 would cover that. And then not having such permissive language as 6 months. I mean, it sounds like we're covered either way, though. If there are different ordinances and codes that can be enforced, even if we did the 6-month period. So I guess it would just mean that we all need to decide where we want to be. 6 months or 10 days?
But what
Well,
we're
and
looking,
I must
go
have-
ahead, Dan.
I must have missed something, because I thought we weren't gonna adjust the code, we were just gonna adjust the street, the work, the
Time period.
The ordinance that dealt with the,
the street work thing, whatever that word is, what's the word I'm trying to say?
It is the model traffic
The
code.
model traffic study. I thought we were just gonna adjust the model traffic study and not the ordinance.
no,
So
So
this is.
then when I saw the one in the packet with the 7 days, I thought, well, I must have missed something, but, okay, so. But
guess
am I
can
the
we-
only one that remembers it that
Can
way?
we
So
get some
maybe it wasn't me.
clarification on why we need to do both? Just, why do we need to do both?
So, if we weren't adopting a new model traffic code, and you wanted to change the number of days, you would just pass this ordinance.
Okay.
We jumped on it because we wanted something for the summer, and so that I drafted this. I would almost recommend to the council that you either table or don't approve the ordinance that I drafted, but give me direction to say, when we adopt the model traffic code, also adjust the days which are contained within the model traffic code. And that way, we should be able to come back to you next meeting with this. So,
I think that's what you were remembering, was that we were not approving the ordinance. We wanted to do the ordinance to try to get ahead of the summer, because we're already there, but the model traffic code is still in process.
If I could just add, this ordinance is an amendment to the model traffic code,
Okay.
which is why it's all incorporated in one, which our oversight last time. And I understand trying to get ahead of the summer, but our goal is to try to get the model traffic code presented tonight. We can tweak these amendments as you direct us and as you see fit, and then we can move forward on passing that. I've instructed my staff to hold off on enforcing this ordinance right now because it is in question, so I think we have time to address it all in one shot and as part of the model traffic.
I would take the city attorney's advice and table this so that we can get it sorted out.
I agree.
Next work session?
Just do it all at once.
Can't we do it all at once when we do the workout session today? Isn't that what we're talking about today?
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
that is, yeah. Right.
So just table this until the work session.
any other opinions?
I'm so confused.
This is a little confusing, I agree. I agree.
I agree, let's table it and take care of it
But we
next time.
will have it at the next, I think council was interested, we want to get this done one way or the other at the next council meeting. Okay. All right, so, okay, so we have to take a vote on that. You're about to kick me, weren't you? If the motion is to table, do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Councilor Scalisi seconds. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Garrell,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Scalisi,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mayor Bain.
Yes. I'm a little nervous because I got 2 former mayors watching to see how many times I screw up.
And now she can kick you.
No pressure.
Yeah, that's
No
right.
pressure.
I appreciate that, though. All right, let's move on to finance.
I move we approve disbursements and payroll from May 9th, 2021 to May 24th, 2021 in the amount of $366,516.19.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Counselor Spradlin, second. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Stroud?
Yes.
Counselor Gravel?
Yes.
Counselor Scalisi?
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom?
Yes.
Counselor Sherman?
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes. Okay, moving on to staff reports. Rick Karoglian, Assistant City Administrator and Community Development Director.
Good evening, council. So things are going great. Building department's doing well. David Basil's continue to be more than satisfactory for us. And our reorganization of things, I believe we have 4 days, and then our ordinances are passed. You know, I think that month we had to wait for public comment or whatever's going to be there. So we are approaching June, third week of June is when we'd like to kind of go live with our new ordinance requirements for building residential and commercial. So that's exciting for us as we're doing that. We're also currently working with MyGov, which is the software company that does building permits and contractor licensing. So we've been doing training with them, and we're going to launch that third week of June as well. So it's the same thing that Fort Morgan's doing. You guys already approved of that, but we're in the training process right now, and it's great. So we are enjoying it. So very busy. I know I feel like my day is nothing but meetings most of the time. And so I still have about 20 projects that I'm currently working on, and I don't want to bore you with all of it, but it's I stay busy all the time, and it's great. Living the dream still. Thanks.
Thank you. Chief of Police, Derek Boss.
Good evening. I'll start with the good news. So our cadet who is in the academy graduates on June 6th. Things are going very well with that, and we are excited to bring him out on the street. The bad news, I have 2 officers out, one on injury, one on surgery, so we need his supplemental help quite badly. The tornado sirens, we had the unfortunate event to have to put them to the test, but everything worked great.
Good, it really did.
System worked exactly how it's supposed to, and really the only issue that I have been told about was, and I have no control over it, but the signs out on the interstate didn't make any notification to drivers. But as far as brush goes, everything worked great with our system. We did sustain hail damage to 4 cars, patrol cars in the last 2 weeks, as well as the animal shelter roof, so we're working through that. And then I was notified late last week about the JAG grant, which we initially were given a 4-year time frame on the JAG grant, and the state has decided to cut us off. We've not been able to fill the position that we have the grant funding for, nor has Fort Morgan, so they feel that the funds aren't being spent, which they're not. So they're choosing to reallocate them to other projects. I did ask for an extension on our 1-year funds that we haven't spent, and I've got preliminary approval on that. I should have a firm approval later in June, but that will give us until June 30th of 2022 to spend the funds. And talking with Monty, we're going to go ahead and try to fill that position and then supplement the funding next year, so we still have that officer position. I do think the Drug Task Force is a great asset to our community. We are committed to staying involved in that, even though we don't get the JAG funds. We just made our 3rd referral for federal prosecution this morning, which is great. It's kind of scary that we have that much going on in 6 months that it's been up and running, or 7 months, but it is very successful, and they're busy. So that's all I've got for now.
I have a question
Yes,
for
ma'am.
you. So as we continue to get back to life as normal, I am just wondering if your cases for DV and child abuse have gone down.
Not child abuse, yes. Domestic violence is not. That's
Okay.
pretty much plateaued. We're not seeing a decrease in that at all.
I was just hopeful as things started to get back to normal, so I was just wanted to know.
And our child crimes cases really spiked in the fall. As kids were coming back in school, we saw more reporting from the schools, and that actually tapered off kind of November, December. and really has slowly declined this spring, but we're not back to normal yet.
Any other areas of concern as far as calls for service? Anything that's seen a rise?
Our motor vehicle thefts are definitely, they were up, they were down, and they're climbing back up rapidly.
Or damage?
Damaged property.
Counselor Spradlin can talk about that.
How many catalytic converters missing in that?
You know, ironically, most of the stolen cars show up without the catalytic converters, but we have very few that are just stolen off the cars in town.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Chief. Loranda Packard, City Clerk.
I have just a couple things to bring up. First of all, we missed National EMS Week, National Public Safety Communicators Week, and National Firefighter Day. And I want to thank Counselor Burrell for bringing these dates to us and requesting notice for them as well. And then I just want to mention proclamations can still be done at the June 4th council meeting. And then to catch you up to speed on a couple things going on with CML, their annual conference is going to be held in September. The in-person is September 22nd through the 24th, and then the virtual is September 30th to October 1st. They're having it back at the Westin in Westminster that was canceled there last year. Registration is not yet open, but I am looking for interest now, just so that we can get those registrations in when that does come available. And then the last thing is the annual CML business meeting will be held virtually on June 21st at 9 a.m. And you guys can let me know if you are interested in attending, and I'll get you registered. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Dan Krubb, City Attorney.
I have nothing to report, but I can answer questions if you guys have any.
Okay, Monty Therese, City Administrator.
Okay, a few different things here, but I need to make a note. Well, before we go on to other items after my report, did want to touch base a little bit on the fees in lieu of land dedication, just kind of get a quick update from Dan. But I'll go ahead and get started. First thing is, over the next week or two, we're going to be looking at having a meeting, and this is a meeting in regards to potentially a ballot question, if there's interest in that for law enforcement. One of the challenges we have is it's hard to stay competitive with the salaries. All around us, we're having different law enforcement agencies increasing what they pay officers, and so we need to stay competitive. We also have some other needs for the department as well. You know, as we slowly start growing, we're gonna need more officers down the line, and so we'll discuss that a little bit more over the next week or two, because we have deadlines coming up, whether that goes on to the ballot this year or not, so we need to make sure we meet those. And I asked the council members, if you'd like to be part of those discussions, just exploring this, to send me an email through the city clerk, just letting us know if you'd like to sit in on some of those discussions and talk about that for the future. Public Works Week, that was, it was last week. Last week. And so we did read a proclamation to the Public Works Department during a barbecue, and we're gonna have another event for them coming up in the next week or so, and we'll send out invites to council members if you'd like to attend that. We did get, one other comment in regards to that ballot question and law enforcement is Kim Dykes, who is our HR person, has reached out to Mountain States Employers Council, and they are starting off the compensation study, just really more or less updating what they did for us last year, and then also with an additional focus on law enforcement. So we'll have that pulled together probably the next month or two. We want to start a lot earlier than we did last year, so we don't get into a time crunch right before the budget approval process. We did get notified, unfortunately, from the Department of Local Affairs that the Fire Training Center grant, we were not awarded that grant, and we're a little bummed out by it, but I did talk to the fire chief, and we're going to start moving forward with the Fire Training Center, but expected our next meeting just to talk about where we're at, and I'll give you more information on some of the feedback from DOLA, why we did not receive the grant. But different opportunities come our way all the time, and so we had a READY grant application We only had, I believe it was 2 or 3 days to get this grant in from the time that, they only gave you a 1-week window to apply for it. So when we found out about it, we thought about what we could put in for, and so with Rick and Joanne, Rick Krogley and Joanne Gosling, we put in a ready grant for that road going out to the fire training center site. Right now, it's pretty much all dirt, but to build that up and pave it to go into the facility so that they can actually get the vehicles in there safely. So we did apply for that one. If we are awarded that, that still has to come back to council, the contractor agreement with Department of Local Affairs. So we'll be bringing that back to you if we get some positive words about that, if we receive it or not. The stormwater pond agreement, Dan Krob has provided us a draft of that, and Dale Clark and I reviewed that. We have a couple small tweaks, and then that should be here for the city council to review and approve at the next meeting. It's really that pond that is out there at the Brush Agri Park. It's on CLP's property, an agreement, on maintaining that. So we're splitting the maintenance on that. And we'll have more information for the next council meeting. The traffic study and pedestrian study for the school district, we had a partially updated study that was submitted to the city in the last couple of weeks. And there's parts of it that are going to be acceptable, parts that we still need to look at a little bit more. And we'll bring that information to the city council in the near future. One of the challenges is that the study, the original study, what actually occurred and how things were constructed there is different than what the study had studied. So that original one really didn't help out a whole lot. The second study addresses Hospital Road and partially on Mill Street, some of the challenges there. But the one thing that we have to be aware of is that school's already there, so nothing that we do is going to change the fact that there's a lot more traffic in the area now. So there's quite a bit more traffic. And then we went from 4 different entrances for the high school students down to 1. So where they're going to now, there's always going to be additional traffic unless more entrances are installed. And the school population, my understanding, is roughly about 750 students. It has a capacity to grow to 1,000 students. So of course that means more traffic in the future as well. So I think we're gonna always have somewhat of a problem there. And one of the bigger concerns is when the traffic comes out on Mill Street from the secondary campuses, middle school kids, where they're picked up and dropped off, we're starting to get stacking that comes all the way up the drive onto Mill Street, so then it slows down Mill Street. So we're gonna look into that a little bit more.
Do we know, one question, Monty, do we know on the traffic study, there was a lot of citizen comments. Do we know if those citizen comments were taken into that traffic study by the school district?
I believe
and addressed?
part may have been.
Okay.
And so
We
submitted it, but
We
we didn't,
submitted them? Okay.
but we didn't get a direct, but on part of them, they were partially answered by the second study that was done.
Okay.
But not all inconclusive. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dan to update us on the fees in lieu of land dedication.
Okay.
Thanks. So we, I'm sure you guys remember the 20 meetings we had about this with Dr. Wilson. We went back and forth. We drafted an IGA that worked well for both the school district and Brush. It ended up saying if you're going to build a new property, there's going to be need to be a land dedication. So based on the study, it looks like that the school district did. It looks like it's about $1,100 per house, $500 per duplex or apartment, and $575 for a manufactured home that would be assessed as a fee in lieu of land dedication for any new. The school district signed this late last year, and we were just making sure we had all our ducks in a row to get this ready for you guys. I should be able to get this to you in ordinance form, in an ordinance that would amend our code to allow us to go into this IGA, and then we'd have the mayor sign off on that IGA for next time.
For next meeting? Oh, okay.
Any questions?
Any questions about that, council? Okay, all right, thank you.
Question for Monty, if you're done. Speaking of the growing police force, is there any plan in the future anywhere to do anything with their space? Because I know they're pretty cramped as it is, and if we're adding more officers as the city grows, is that on the schedule anywhere in the future? We haven't put that into the future, any of our long-term plans. One of the challenges is that we'd have to figure out where that funding would come from. Right. And so, if that's an interest of the chief and the council members, then we need to sit down and probably do, and I believe we can get a grant for it, a planning grant to actually look at the space need and where the facility be located. Right. One of our challenges is that all of our city hall complex is in the floodplain and floodway. And so any public facility, critical public facility, which police law enforcement is critical, you have to locate those outside of the floodplain, floodway. Okay. So it would have to be towards the west side of town. Right. And so that's always a requirement if you're gonna take federal funds, state funds. I believe it's the same thing. On your grant applications, they're gonna ask you the question, is this gonna be located in a floodplain, floodway? And you have to have answers of why would you put it in floodplain, floodway?
Just buy some boats.
Yep. But that's something that we can definitely, the mayor and I just talked about, we probably are gonna start needing to have some city council priority setting meetings, just so we understand what might be out there, so we can put that on as one of those discussion points.
Cool, thank you.
But, okay, but, yes.
I do have 2 officers on light duty. One of them is actually researching this for us. So his assignment is looking into what would it take to kind of refurbish where we're at, what's the expense, is it even feasible based on the age of the building, and then what are our other options, another property, building new, refurbishing something like that. So just trying to get an idea of what the best direction is to go.
I assume I assume if we're refurbishing the building, obviously, would that affect grants if we do it, try for that?
If we do it, the grants, every grant's gonna be a little bit different. We're typically used to doing the DOLA grants. Those are the ones we've been very successful with, but there could be some in the law enforcement world that I'm not tracking. One thing I haven't done yet is build a police department, so.
Well, see.
So we can look into it though.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, moving on to mayor and council reports. Does anyone have anything to report this week?
I do, of course, because I'm always the one that talks in this. I just wanted to say it was great to get to go out to dinner with a couple of our officers, and thank you, Rick Kroglian, for joining us. It was really great to actually get to talk to them one-on-one and really get some feedback. On that note, though, I do feel it is important to bring to council's attention, now that we are all in one place and we're following meeting laws. I was not aware that our department is now the lowest paid department in the county. And the reason that this is a concern, one of the things that I didn't know until I became a law enforcement wife is the difference between a non-certified police officer and a certified police officer. So you have a post-certification, and if you're not familiar with that, that means they have to go to an academy, they have to go through rigorous training to become a post-certified police officer. The current entry-level pay for a jail deputy who does not have to have a post-certification is higher than our entry-level police officers that are out on the street putting their lives on the line. I was also very concerned to hear that, we have officers that are out on domestic violence cases by themselves without any backup. That's concerning. That falls to the county a bit too, making sure that they have officers to come in and help our officers, because that's how things usually work, especially at nighttime. And I said, I hear 2 different issues here from you guys. I hear an issue that says, we are in harm's way, and I hear an issue that says we are not paid enough. And the issue really boils down to, we are willing to be in harm's way if we are paid to be in harm's way. If that probably doesn't come out correctly, it's just that if you're gonna put your life on the line, it might be nice to be paid, at least as the second largest city in the county. Wiggins police officers currently make more than our police officers. This is all public information. All of this information can be found out and about. I have a concern. I don't want to lose our officers. We have amazing officers on staff. I have a couple, of course, that I'm pretty fond of. I think they're fantastic. They're great people. They're out, they're with the community, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. We need to have that retention. And getting police officers in this day and age is not an easy thing to do. So I think it's really important for all of us as a council to move forward and see what we need to do to make sure that we are supporting our police department. So that's what I wanted to bring to council tonight.
I think that's something we all talked about before when we do our budget every year, right? We've always pushed for that, so I think we're all in favor of that. I mean, I don't think that's...
Yeah, even though we just did the compensation study, we're now the lowest paid.
I understand.
We just
but
came
I'm
in
saying
lower.
I think we all agree with you. I think that's...
Yeah, and I just didn't know if you guys were aware, because I thought that we weren't. I thought that Brush was the second highest paid as it used to be just a few years ago, and now we're the lowest paid. So I thought that that was something that you guys needed to be aware of.
But that's not something new. It seems like every time we try to get ahead of the curve, as soon as we do that, then one of the other communities bumps it higher, putting us lower, and then we try to keep making that. So where do you stop? What is it that we could do for police officers that doesn't always have to be a monetary gain?
And I think that's a conversation that we should have maybe as a work session with the police chief and figure out what we need to do to make sure that we are keeping that retention.
And this might be a good point too. When you talk about that, Kevin brought up the expanding police department. I want to make sure council knows, any council member that wants to bring an item to a work session, I think our rules say 2 council members can bring an item on a work session. So let me know or let Miranda know, the city clerk, and we'll go ahead and get it on there, topics that you have that you want to talk about. So
okay.
That's how we can do it. It doesn't have to be a council reports. If we need more discussion on an item, we can certainly arrange for that, so.
And I just did it as a council report because I didn't know if all of you were aware.
Yeah, okay.
And
Yes, sir. Come up to the mic here.
Name and address, please.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I would just ask that you please have a strong sense of urgency as you think about this. Yes, we are the lowest paid, competitive with Log Lane. I'm not sure if they're higher or lower than us, but last year we were the lowest paid too. And we took a bump. We walked a little bit. Everybody else walked away from us. And so there's got to be some urgency to this discussion. My opinion, man for man, woman for woman, we have the best department in the county, in the region, in the state. I would put them up against anybody. We're not going to have that in 6 months if we can't address this issue. I know the offers my officers are getting, and we're not there. We are grateful. We don't want to sound ungrateful. The reason you have the department you have is because they appreciate you guys. They appreciate your support. They appreciate everything you're doing for us, and we are grateful. But this is challenging. As officers look at buying a home, as they look at their bank account, it hurts. We look at other departments that take bumps every 6 months even, and we're way behind the curve. So I would just ask that you have a sense of urgency as you look at this. If you wait, you're not going to have the same amount of officers that you have now.
I don't think it's an ungrateful thing, Chief. I don't think they're, grateful. I mean, everybody in this room looks at the same job you do, people that do the same job as you do, and you compare all the time. I think that's natural. I mean, I think to be competitive is, they're like any other human being on the planet,
So,
go ahead.
2 points on that just real quick. The one about the officers that are receiving offers, it boils down to if you're a delivery driver and you work for X company and Y company offers you $10,000 more a year and you have a family to take care of, it's not that they don't want to be here, it's that they have to go somewhere else because that's what they need to do to provide for their family. So that's the first point, and then the second point was, yeah, definitely, they weren't ungrateful, they wanna be here. They expressed that wholeheartedly, that they wanna be here.
But to make a point that Dan said also, if X company offers you $10,000 more, but their health insurance isn't as good, or there's other things that aren't as good. It's not all about money. Money's huge. You know what I mean? That's big. But maybe also look at other ways to compensate them with money, be competitive, but also.
Yeah, because if you increase health insurance or make a health insurance change that's different, then you decrease the cost that they're putting out that way, so then that creates monetary gain on the back end. So, great point.
I think there's a couple points here. We're hit twofold here, because we are a smaller community, and there's some things we just will never be able to compete with. So monetarily, we need to step it up, and I think going to the voters is probably the best way to get that support, on a ballot issue or something like that. Let the community help us, help them, type of thing. But I think too, we have to do a good job of making this a place they wanna live, and that pay is compensatory to the cost of living in town. So we have to walk this fine line of not jacking up the cost of living so high that what we're paying them just vanishes. So I think we gotta do that twofold. And there's another side of this, while obviously law enforcement needs the bump, I think we need to take a hard look at all of our wages at a city level here real soon, because we have some people that do some really specialty work that could go into the private sector and make a fortune. So it's something we need to look at, I think, at the whole level, across the board, but I definitely see the urgency with the police department as well, so.
In my dinner, I only had one officer because one wife got sick with COVID and the other had surgery. But in talking to some of the newer officers I've talked to, some of the younger guys, one guy was working 3 jobs, another guy was working 2 jobs. And these guys are doing shift work, they're doing nights and stuff like that. And I flat asked one, I know what offer he could have taken somewhere else. I said, why didn't you? Why didn't you take it? You're talking 15,000, why didn't you do it? And he's from Puerto Rico, Officer Maldonado. Said, because you guys gave me a chance. Said, I didn't speak very good English when I came here, and you guys gave me a chance, and that meant a lot to him. So these guys are giving us our loyalty. We need to reward them with a living wage. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. It's just how we go about doing that, we can have discussion on.
No officers have to be working 2 and 3 jobs.
No, I agree.
Well, and part of this is supply and demand. I don't, right now, when I talk to the chief about how many officers were in the academy, the numbers are way, way down. I mean, it's a difficult road for them right now. A lot of people aren't going into it, so lumber's going up, the price of police officers going up for the same reason maybe, so.
To that point, Justin, I will tell you, based on my conversations directly with officers, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say half, if not more, of our department right here in Brush are working 2 and 3 jobs with working spouses.
Yes. And yeah, I can't reiterate the urgency to that. The concern is burnout. Another concern statewide, the conversation among the police chiefs is, at what point do you reach a level of staffing that you can no longer provide services? We are bleeding police officers across the state. We don't want to find ourselves in that boat.
Yeah.
And I guess that gives us a unique opportunity also for officers that are running from other areas, where if we can draw them here.
Exactly. We have a very supportive community.
Pretty good. A lot more help than we need type of thing.
But money is a big issue.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue for everybody. You can love your job, but it's hard to get out of bed every morning if
You can't make the rent.
Yeah.
So one thing that we can do for this next council meeting is Joanne, Chief, and I can sit down and strategize a little bit and talk about short-term solutions with the urgency situation, then also long-term, and about that potential of a ballot question of some type. Because the long-term is, we can always afford something short-term. It's when it goes 4, 5, 6 years down the road and you're giving more raises along the way. If the revenues don't increase, you've got to cut other services, not law enforcement, but something else has to go. So you have to look at that and And right now, well, for the last probably 6, 7 years, we've been short-staffed in other places too, so you gotta kind of figure out which direction to go. But we'll give some short-term, long-term solutions.
I think that would be fantastic. Would other counselors support me in having this on a work session?
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we should.
Okay.
Okay, one other thing I wanted to bring up real quick about proclamations. We've had quite a few proclamations this year. And I just wanted to explain, I got to thinking about this, you know, I'd like to pass them out, have different councils read them and take part in that. And one of the things I wanted to ask council about is normally the proclamations that we get are requested by different agencies, that sort of thing. They come in, I've looked at them, and most of them have plenty of merit to them, so I just go ahead and do that. And I wanted to ask if council is comfortable with that process, or would you like to see some advance notice of these proclamations to determine what makes it up for a vote? Because in effect, it's a proclamation with my signature on it, but it's the council that actually approves these. Are you comfortable with the way we're doing that in the process, or would you like to have more advance notice?
I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Pardon me?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Works out good.
We have time to read it in the packet. Yeah.
Yeah,
you have time to
okay,
read
okay.
it.
I just wanted to make sure.
If
that
it
you
was
didn't-
really, really crazy, we could say no.
Okay.
And we haven't
okay.
seen anything really,
All
really
right,
crazy
so
yet.
you're good with how we do it? Okay.
That
I
was
wanna
my
make
point, is you haven't put forth anything that I wouldn't myself approve, and yeah, I think we would all have the opportunity to say something.
sure. Okay, all right.
I did get 4 emails, 3 Facebook messages, 2 voicemails. And I think the tally was 5 or 6, 4 chickens and 2 or no chickens.
Okay.
And I'll get those to Lorena so that they can
Okay.
print out on the
Oh,
next packet.
thank you for reminding me. I'm sorry, in doing my due diligence, we did have a Ward 1 resident reach out. She asked that I voice her concern this evening because, as most of you know, there's a candlelight vigil going on right now. So there's a lot of people that are not able to attend. Just want to voice my opinion as a Brush citizen. I do not want chickens to be allowed in town. My biggest reasons are due to chicken feather dust allergies, pests that they attract, noise, cleanliness, and the smell. Thank you for listening to my opinion.
Okay,
So
do you have a name?
that's going to be Tiffany Burhost, and I did ask. She lives on Applewood.
Okay.
She's my neighbor. She also reached out to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I've probably had 6 or 7 people reach out to me against and 1 for.
One thing it showed me, I think, social media has a different reach than Fort Morgan Times. I hadn't heard much about chickens at all until our last work session. Yeah, there was an article in the Fort Morgan Times, and that's when I started getting. So I think there's a different set of people on social media versus the Fort Morgan Times, and then there's an older crowd that isn't necessarily
Why are you
into
looking
it.
at me when you say that?
Because, you know. But anyway, it's interesting, the dynamic. So you do have a reach, I can tell you that.
So, and just for the record, the people that were here tonight, we had 7 no's and 4 yeses.
Oh, okay.
I counted 6 yeses.
I had 6 yeses as well, including the letters, though.
7 no's.
So, I
I
mean,
had 7 no's and 4 yeses.
I think at the end of the day also, like
Yeah,
Justin,
I
I've heard a
have
lot of
7 and 4.
positive more than negative.
Yeah.
It's the side of town you live on, right? That's what it is.
There's a definite
I mean,
demographic
Ward 3 is
issue.
gonna have the chickens, you know what I mean? And part of Ward 2, Ward 1 probably not so much, which most people here,
Yeah.
where the nose were Ward 1, you know what I mean? So, take that for what it is.
We're a divided city.
Yeah, yeah.
I would like to address one issue that was said tonight by a citizen comment, in that she should not be finding out about public issues on Facebook. And I just would like to address that on the record, that we did not initiate the post in Brush Concerned Citizens. A citizen initiated the post. And this was a follow-up post in response to the Fort Morgan Times article. So I just would like to address that this was not initiated by a city councilor or a city staff member.
I'd also like to say that we also post these meetings. You know, everything we've talked about's been posted in a meeting.
Yeah.
You
But-
can watch the video.
I thought she had a point I had never talked about, and it's a changing world how we try to reach the public. But Brush Concerned Citizens, I'm a part of that group. It is a closed group, and when I've gone to these conferences, when they start talking about how you initiate groups with public and stuff like that, okay, it's a closed group that has a moderator, and the moderator, if the moderator doesn't like what somebody's saying, they can delete them, they can boot them, and so it probably is not the best way for city issues to be put out there on a forum that isn't open to the general community. And I'm not saying that we don't have the power to boot them and delete them, but the moderator does, and I've seen that happen on that. The moderator got tired of a certain subject, and it was a city subject, and she said if there was any more discussion about it, and we have to be careful about that. We can't limit the discussion. Maybe Dan could allude to that sort of thing.
They
but-
can always discuss it on the city Facebook page.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
There's
they
other
can,
avenues,
they
it's
can
just-
discuss it amongst themselves.
Yeah.
As long as
There's
we're
other
not.
avenues there for discussion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see where the concern could be on
Yeah.
a private page.
It kind of sounds like this, especially after all the comments tonight, needs to go to a work session as well. So we need to have a longer discussion about this.
And that, part of the reason I talked about bring up something, maybe there was a misconception here. We had the first work session after the gentleman came to council, right? Had the first work session. At that council meeting, my recollection is that council asked for more information. We had more information from different communities on how they handle it. From that point forward, at that second meeting, I remember at the work session there was very little discussion about it, and I thought maybe people hadn't digested what they had read. So give people more time. But there was no discussion beyond that point. I haven't put it on the agenda again because no council member has requested that to be
We
put.
tabled it
yeah, it
because
hasn't been on
we
the
didn't have enough public comment.
And I
We-
thought we were waiting for staff report as well, is my understanding.
We provided the information
Staff did,
that.
yeah.
Well, I
From the
meant like
other towns.
recommendations, that's what I remember. Anybody else?
Staff did provide recommendations. It might have been a night that you weren't here, Kevin. They gave
Oh,
us.
it was the night you tore your Achilles.
Ew.
But there-
So they had given
Oh,
us
well, there
many
you go.
recommendations, because I read through also Fort Morgan's ordinance and all of that.
Yeah, I've
But
just seen
at that time, we had made the decision to table it because we only had one citizen comment. We only had
So-
one public comment.
One of the things we wanted to know, Chief Boss, we asked him to contact police officials in surrounding towns that had chickens and just find out if the issues we're hearing were major issues. And I just asked Chief Boss if he had heard and he contacted them if they'd had any issues.
I'm Switzerland on this, I really have no opinion. But, no, it's, talking to other chiefs, it's minimal concerns. You know, as far as the animal shelter, do we need more space? Very likely not.
What does Fort Morgan do for housing confiscated chickens?
They really don't have an issue with it, so.
This is what we need to,
Plus
this is the information we need, because we're really fledgling on this. We don't, I have no clue. I've never raised a chicken in my life. I eat a lot, that's it. But we need the information to know, you know, are we gonna need a place to house the chickens?
Mhm.
Okay? Are they having major issues with pests, with neighbors fighting, with, you know, the stuff that's being voiced?
Right.
We need to, it'd be nice to know from surrounding communities that have these ordinances, if it's just
And truly, it's a
nightmare.
non-issue, everybody I talk to.
What more, guys, you know? We can do our research, like that guy said, do our due diligence. Let's do a vote, man. You know, let's get
Yeah.
on the books and do a vote. You know what I mean? What more do we need to,
I think one
we can all
great
research
point.
it on our own.
Yeah.
There was a really good point in support of it tonight that I think is really important for council to remember, is that those in favor are going to be the smaller number. Because those who want chickens, and so we're going to hear more no's than we're going to hear yeses. And this is my words against it. For the most part, I haven't heard, I think, only one yes out of Ward 1. But I think it was a really great point that those who want it are going to be outnumbered. And so I think regulations, making sure that it's highly regulated, and that we are enforcing those codes. I do have strong concerns about our code enforcement and what kind of issues and levels that's gonna put on them, especially because we only have one that's still in training, Chief?
Yes, but she's doing phenomenal, so.
Is she full-time or part-time?
She'll be part-time, but we'll have 7-day-a-week coverage once she's finished the training.
Okay. That's why I liked Fort Morgan's ordinance, because it was so heavily, these are the rules. But we just have to support those rules. It sounds like Ward 1 doesn't really have a lot of concern, because it doesn't sound like anyone in Ward 1 wants them. So, I mean,
There was some on social media that did from Ward 1, a couple that I.
yeah, she's like the only one. I think that needs to be in our minds, though, is that there's never gonna be an overwhelming positive yes from the citizens for this, because those that want them are outnumbered.
I think each one of us has to do our best to weigh the opinion that we get and make a decision. But rather than begin a work session on it tonight, should we put it on for work session at the next council meeting?
Yes. Yes, we need to
Do I have
talk
any
about it.
requests?
I kinda agree with Larry. I'd like to
Stink
just.
by the time we make this
I know.
decision.
Oh,
There'll no longer be chickens on planet Earth.
So,
you know?
to Larry's point, if everybody's ready to, here's the thing though, on all of our work sessions, we try to come to a consensus. This is a split, right? We try to come to a consensus before we take it to management, we're gonna take a vote on it. If the question that has to be asked is not how we regulate chickens. The question that has to be asked is, are we going to permit them? If the consensus from council is that we're gonna permit them, then we talk about how we're gonna regulate them. The first thing we have to do is, are we or are we not? And I think Larry's right. We, at a work session, we can't do it tonight, it's not a work session topic. Let's say where we stand on this. If we are agreed that we're going to permit them, then we go into that phase of talking about an ordinance. If we're
But-
not agreed that we're gonna permit them, then it
Shouldn't
dies
we
at work session.
Go to a vote whether or not we agree to permit them, not in a work session, but in a.
I don't believe
You
so,
think we
because we're
should vote
talking
in
about,
work
are we
session?
going to change the law? Are we going to
Okay,
change the
so
law
we
that
can make
permits
that
the code?
decision in a work
If the
session.
work session says we're not interested in changing the law, it dies right there, because there's no reason to take it to a vote. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I
We
mean,
don't, oh, go ahead.
I know where I stand. Do you know where you stand already?
I know where
Yes
I
or no?
stand.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
You know where you stand, Dan?
Yes.
Do you know where you
No,
stand?
yes, no.
Justin?
So let's have a
Are we
work
voting or just no?
No, just who do you
Have
stand?
vote tonight.
I know where I stand.
I know where I
so-
stand.
So do you want to, oh, well, but okay.
So
Can we
if-
have a consensus
If that's the
tonight?
case, then I think you could probably direct staff, if you all know where you stand and you're all, if there's overwhelming support that, yeah, we want to allow chickens, but we want to regulate them, I think you could direct staff to say, look into regulations similar to wherever. I think we gave you 3 or 4 different municipalities. If no one wants chickens, then I think it's probably more proper for it to go to work session and say it, but it's really.
Define overwhelming.
You have to define it.
All right, fair enough.
What's that?
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
It sounds like we need to just take it to a
I mean,
vote.
I think we should
I
take
don't
it to a
think
vote
we
in a
can
work
make any
session.
decisions, but if.
Yeah, let's put it on a work session and we'll vote
Okay,
in a work
well,
session on.
next work
yea or nay,
session.
and then we'll
Okay.
direct staff.
All right. Is that, okay. You're not gonna be here.
Can we stand?
Do you
I'm not
remember what
canceling my trip to
Oh,
make a
yeah.
vote.
Right.
Can we, you just wanna vote right now? Can we do that?
It's not really a vote, it's a
Just are we
consensus of
gonna-
council
Give
on
me
how.
I think it's giving staff direction, and I think
I would,
anything that I would draft would go in front of staff and in front of the public for.
I think if we're talking about a divided council, it's important that when we vote, we have the whole council here.
I agree.
So,
So do you
Dan,
need a
will you be
motion?
gone for 1 meeting or 2?
2.
Okay, so do we wait until July then to address it?
I think that the citizens will not be very happy with us if we wait until July.
I don't think the citizens are gonna be very happy with us no matter
Either
what
way.
we do. Half of them anyway.
And it's not an emergency, by the way.
It's
No.
not an
So if we
emergency.
did wait 30 days, it's not an emergency. So,
What's the feeling of council? I look for guidance.
I just want it to be a
Yeah, we've lost like days of our lives over chickens, man, you know what I mean?
I think we all just want to make a decision. I think Larry's to that point, Dana's to that point, I'm to that point. We would like to just make a decision.
I think it's fun.
Okay. All right, so right now, how many people want to direct staff to look into the ordinances for chickens?
I thought they already did.
Well, no, I thought it's supposed to be
They already-
whether you want chickens or not.
Whether you want
Yeah,
to
then we
permit
go
chickens.
forward on how we're gonna regulate it.
Their work session.
Are you in favor of permitting chicken? I'm a no.
I'm no.
I'm a yes.
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 I'm a no.
Oh,
I said it before you because I wanted you to make the
There you
break.
go. 3-3
That's
again.
the experience right there, Dan. Good job.
Yeah, well,
So I'm going to preface this by saying that I hear all of the points that have been made by everyone. I do hear that there is going to be a resounding amount of no's versus yeses. And I do hear the passion that people have for these chickens and that they want them. However, it is my job on this council to represent my ward and to represent the people that, would vote for me or put me in this position. And the majority of them say no. So unfortunately, for that reason, I want to support everyone. I always do. But I'm going to have to say no as well.
So we're 4-3 no?
Sounds overwhelmingly positive to me.
However you want to define that.
And that's purely because of the feedback that I've received. That's the way I have to vote.
Exactly.
Yeah, me neither.
That's just.
Your wife wants a duck.
Town is like.
So does that mean it's dead on arrival now? Are we done?
Is
Well, we're not getting any guidance to go forward with it.
We are not directing staff to move forward with it, is what we're doing.
Is it possible, since it's so split, and I mentioned this before?
No.
I'm trying to be creative here because, make everybody happy, because that's what we can do. It's not possible, we talked about wards, can't split it that way potentially, at all. Is there, and you said, if that was a thing at all, how could we do it based on property type?
I would say the only way you'd be able to do it would be on lot size, which would consistently put
Most of it on
larger
Ward
lots on
1.
that side.
Yep.
Smaller lots on this side, but you're still gonna run into that.
Oh,
You might be able to do it based on zoning, but I'd have to look closer at your zoning, and I doubt, most of this is gonna be residential, and I doubt you have enough smaller defined residential subparts that it would really
There was
make
even
much sense.
some regulations that were to the point where the coop had to be so far from a property line, and there's just some lots that there's no way that can happen. So that's how some of them were like regulating it, but.
What about pursuing, someone mentioned the community garden slash.
I love that idea.
The chicken
A
house.
community chicken coop.
Because I've never built a police department, but I've never built a chicken coop. So
I love that
I did
idea.
like that idea.
I mean,
Which
if
one's
you,
more important, the coop or the?
Now you're gonna, now you wanna
Who's
spend
responsible for the chickens
taxpayer
there
money
then?
on chickens,
But
you know what I mean?
put the chickens there. They would each have their own little coop there.
Sounds
like something
the county
Kind of like the community garden.
A community chicken coop.
All right, let's just table it for now.
Okay.
So I'll be kind, I had a whole list of things I want to talk about, but that was like 45 minutes ago, so I'll save it for next meeting.
okay. All right, we have an executive session. Let's move on. Let's move on to number 9, executive session. I would look for a motion to move into executive session.
thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Larry. Have a good night.
Thanks all.